Will Barber be the main villain for a DLC or one of the boss in Little Nightmares 3? Let's talk about it. What is up, SmackNPie here, and welcome back to another Little Nightmares video. Freaking finally. Last time we did a TV show update. If you're interested, make sure to check that out. I'll put it somewhere up in the cards. But today I want to talk about one of the cut content from Little Nightmares franchise. Not just Little Nightmares 2, but Little Nightmares as a whole. So, a while back I showed you guys the cut content from the art book of Little Nightmares 2, and in it I showed you guys Barber. This Barber right here, he had three things going on. One, we had a little bit of drawing of him using the knife on one of the kids. The other one was his shop from the outside, and the final one was just the same upper thing but without colors. So let's talk about him for a second, okay? But before I begin, I wanted to ask you guys two things. Number one, make sure to drop in the comments down below what location should Little Nightmares 3 be in, number one. And number two, how do you get the first person mod for Little Nightmares 2? If there's any way I can get my hands on it, please let me know. My Twitter is @SmackNPie. Do let me know. I would really appreciate it. Anyways, with that being said, let's jump into the video. So I have some couple of points I made here. Number one is that the developers themselves talked about this Barber. They said in one of the interviews that if there was a third game, Barber would definitely be in that game. Now, that was back when Tarzu Studios were working buddies with Bandai Namco. And Bandai Namco, of course, they were the ones marketing the game, obviously, so one would say, okay, if they had plans for Little Nightmares 3, Barber would be in it. That is number one. Number two, we saw him in the art book of Little Nightmares 2 cut content. That is crazy how creepy he actually looks, and he actually fits perfectly. He's one of the fastest growing in popularity when it comes to the cut content. I see more people talk about Barber than any other cut content, even the alternate endings, which I feel like are underrated. We all know the story that this Barber is inspired by some of the fairy tales from the past, where this man would come here and cut the hands off the kids, from the kids who would suck on their thumbs. That is a fairy tale of the past. If you heard one of these fairy tales when you were young, rest in peace, you have my condolences. But here, they're taking it to the next level, and these are kids' little nightmares. Why wouldn't you want to take that as an opportunity to introduce a character such as this? That would be nuts. This is Little Nightmares after all. And it is crazy how kids have the perception of being alone is scary. Both adults and kids are afraid of being alone. Kids are afraid because of monsters gonna come to them if they're alone and whatnot, but adults have the perception of, okay, if we're alone. You know where I'm going with this one, right? It is crazy. I just wanted to point that out. Anyways, if he does end up in the future game, which I 100% believe he will, his mechanics are quite obvious. So in the cut content, we see him in his shop, but most importantly, we see some areas where players can hide, specifically under the table. Those areas are clearly drawn for us to see hiding spots. Maybe under the chairs, maybe under the table. Under the table is 100% confirmed. And we might even see a kid getting bodied. Well, not 18 plus bodied, but like a kid getting captured and then being sliced for his pleasure. And if he was in the Pale City, then we would have definitely known that, okay, he does this and cut hands, as we all aware of the fact that in one of the sequences in the hospital, there were hands that were alive. Where was those hands coming from? You guessed it, this sucker right here. This sucker is inspired by another sucker who cuts off kids' hands, specifically those who would suck on their thumbs. And where those hands go? You guessed it, to the doctor, to the hospital, so that the doctor can make those hands alive. And this is exactly what we saw. So now those hands have backstory. I feel sad for those hands. That is nuts. That is creepy. I knew there was something fishy going on with those hands. So that is number one. Number two, even though he's an amazing monster, he's an amazing enemy, a very intriguing enemy, we don't know how he would be implemented by the developers if they add him in the game. One thing I will say though is that he needs to be in the upcoming Little Nightmares projects. He would definitely be in one of the 3 DLCs, upcoming DLCs, supposedly. Many people say that you can see the DLC. I talked about DLC a lot. You can check those out, why I believe there will be 3 DLCs. But if there are 3 DLCs, one of them would be related to this Barber right here. He would be the boss, and we would see and encounter one of the kids getting their hands chopped off and being sent to the hospital. They will put those clues together. And finally, if we go with the developers themselves, who said that if there is a third game, Barber is going to be in it, he's clearly going to be one of the bosses in there. But his role is is gonna be tweaked a little bit, but that would mean that the third game will be connected to the second game in terms of prequel sequel. We know Little Nightmares 1 exists, Little Nightmares 2 is the prequel of Little Nightmares 1, so that means Little Nightmares 3 will tackle events even before that. And I'm all up for it. If you can see some light in these games, they're always dark. If you can see some light in the games, take my money. Target Studios, oh sorry, they're gone. Bandai Namco, I didn't mean to throw that shade, come on. The reason I started this conversation is because I'm gonna touch on some other enemies that were not added. I'm just gonna end with the point that his portrait has been there from the first game. In the Residence DLC, in the school hallway, his portrait can be found, so the developers intend him to be in it. They intend this sucker to be in one of the future games. We just don't know which one. Either it's gonna be the third game or it's gonna be the DLC. I hope he's in the DLC because as much as I love him, he's clearly a boss material, not the main villain material. He's clearly a threat for a DLC type. That's all I'm gonna say for now. Subscribe right now, help me get to 75k, and I'll see you in the next video. So also follow me on Twitter and send the SmackNPie. I do some crazy stuff over there. Take care and peace.